What if I told you that there's a restaurant right here in the heart of Mississauga, Ontario, the likes of which you've probably never seen? For starters, there's no menu, there's hardly any serving staff, and despite that, this is one of the single highest reviewed and rated Indian restaurants in the GTA.
That they would go and try food everywhere, but then they come back here.
The woman I'm about to introduce you to today is a shining example of how to come through hardship to find a meaning, purpose, and to find success.
Because there was a time when it was terrible. Like I was literally to the ground. I didn't know where the next day money I would have.
She'll talk to us about what it takes to get started in the restaurant business, what you should know before you get started, how to know whether or not you should get into this business.
If you're young and if you're just having young kids, don't get into it.
And what it took for her to turn Ancila into the success that it is today while staying very, very lean. So, without further ado, let's go on inside, let's talk to Ancila, the woman behind it all, and let's find out her secrets to making Ancila what it is today. Come on in.
Never ever dreamt that this is what I would be doing. But when I got this restaurant, which was not planned, I realized that I got to do something with it.
It's just yourself?
Yes.
Right? I think a lot of people are going to be curious about how you make that happen.
You hit that button and they won't go anywhere.
And how do you make financial sense to not have all tables be at occupancy?
And then from 2017, I started climbing up again. It's compulsory for you to have that type of revenue. Otherwise, you won't survive.
How did you get these people to fall in love with Ancila?
After I convinced the customer and they ate the food, they realized this is a much better experience.
What do you wish that Ancila from that time knew that you know now? Ancila, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having us. And thank you so much for the very nice tea. I really appreciate it.
You're most welcome.
And I was actually here last week and you served me some shahi paneer and naan. And it was genuinely one of the finest dining experiences I've possibly ever had. And we'll talk a little bit about what made it so special in a bit. But just tell us a little bit about your journey here. How did you get here? Because I know your background is not in food. And like, how did Ancila end up creating Ancila's Indian Cuisine?
That's a long journey. In some way, I think this is just the right fit because I'm a foodie. I love food. I don't like cooking, the cooking aspect of it. But when I got this restaurant, which was not planned, I realized that I got to do something with it. We had menus before and we had chefs, but you know, it was a very dicey game, as in you're cooking for the customer. Sometimes they will like it, sometimes they won't like it. And then you kept wondering, at least I kept wondering, like, what's wrong? It's the same food. Why did one person like it and the other didn't? Then I realized that it's not about the food being bad. It was just not made to the person's palate. That's why I got rid of the menus and then I started talking to them. And then I also realized it is a lot to do with the circumstances by which the person is coming in to eat. And when you talk, you get all those nuances, and those nuances then go into the food, and then when you eat the food, it more or less becomes exactly what you want.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it must have been a leap of faith because I personally am vegetarian, right? So if I'm going to a restaurant, I'm checking their menu before I go, right? I want to know if they're actually going to be able to serve me, or if it's, you know, I don't want to end up at a steakhouse and not have anything to eat.
Right.
So how did you find that was playing into customers' expectations of what they would want out of a restaurant versus the reality of, hey, there's no menu, there's no prices,
Yes.
right? That's another thing. How did that kind of end up rolling out as you thought it would be, or was it a completely different experience?
No, initially I had a lot of, you have a sort of stereotype mind. If it's a restaurant, then it has to have menus, it has to work in a certain function, certain way. And I realized not really. There's nothing written that it has to be done in a particular manner. I can always make it my own. And I had a lot of resistance earlier when it was no menu, but after I convinced the customer and they ate the food, they realized this is a much better experience. They are getting what they want, there's a conversation, and it is more personable. So I did not have any issues with that after.
Right.
I still have, most of the time people that come in, I have to, it's like they are not familiar with the food. The Indians are, the non-Indians are not. So you have two types of customers. Somebody who will ask you questions, some people who would want to read the menu to be comfortable. So they are a bit skeptical, but I think the food talks, and then they are converted, and then they say, oh my God, this is such a different experience. Like, you at least look at us like human beings, and you take care to make the food to what our tastes are. So then they realize that, it does add to the experience. It goes a long way with it.
Okay. And so how long has it been since you made the switch from a conventional model to no menu? Okay.
Yes, 2009 since I made that.
So for a majority, because the restaurant's been around for 16 years?
Yes.
Okay, so almost 13 years now you've had no menu.
It's like I didn't know to cook.
Yeah.
So I needed input from the customer to tell me how to cook. Okay, like what is it they are looking out for? So when I talk to them, that's when I get the feedback. Okay, they are looking for this particular I don't have any recipes in my head. It's like a taste that I have. You're looking for, and especially if you tell me your spice level, then I know approximately what your palate is and what taste you will like.
I see.
And then I make the food accordingly. So there's no same food, like two people won't get the same food.
I see.
Because it's your vibe that I'm taking in and then cooking. I know it's a very different way of doing it, but it's successful.
It is. It's very unique. So and that's one aspect, right? No menu.
Yes.
The other two aspects are, one, it's just yourself.
Yes.
Right? I think a lot of people are going to be curious about how you make that happen.
Right.
Maybe through some miracles.
No.
Anyone who's tried to run a restaurant knows that it takes a village, to actually make it all happen. And the second of having one customer at a time. So those two things, how do you make it make logistical sense to have it just be you? And how do you make it make financial sense to not have all tables be at occupancy, be completely occupied as much as possible? Because I think that's what every restaurant aims for.
Yes. See, the thing is, the restaurants, most of them, in anticipation of customers coming in, they already front load their finances with a lot of expenses. They have that many staff, they have that many cooks, and then it's like a catch-22. Now you have so much of staff, you have so much of cooks, like you have staff inside, and then you've spent so much on the decor and everything else. You have to, it's compulsory for you to have that type of revenue, otherwise you won't survive. With me, it's the other way around. Even because of my model, even if I have more cooks, there is only, and food is cooked fresh, you need that much time for each dish. So it didn't matter how many people I have, because you have only that many gas stoves and only that much food can be cooked at one time. So, and since I don't have staff, I'm not too worried about, I have staff, but they come in the evening to help. And when I have reservations, then if I know more people are coming in, then I have more staff there. So it works for me that way, because then I'm not too worried about expenses, and I get enough of takeouts and walk-ins and a lot of repeat customers. That's how I survived COVID.
Okay.
And I think people realize that they would go and try food everywhere, but then they come back here because then it's their taste. You hit that button and they won't go anywhere. They'll go and check everything else. But when it's meaningful and when it's an important day for them, or if they're not having a good day, they'll come back here to have the food.
Okay.
So that's how I think it made sense to me. And since I'm not from a hotel background, I really don't know how it runs. So I just do how it works for me. It is not the same model for everyone else.
Okay. So let's actually talk about your background, right? Tell us about what you studied, and maybe the experiences that you had before Ancila's that might have led to where you are now.
I've done my law from India. I've done my law. I've done my company secretary, and I have a commerce background. I've worked in multinationals. Never thought I would be getting into food.
Okay.
Never. My mom will say, you do outside work, please don't enter the kitchen, because you make double work for us in the kitchen.
Okay.
But being a foodie, for me, that that satisfaction comes only from giving you the food that you want. It's not about good food or bad food. It is about giving you the food that you want. So I think it worked in my favor. This type of model worked in my favor because this is exactly what I am. And then it allows me to do a lot of other stuff. It's like, though I run a restaurant, I'm here for 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours. But in those 14 hours, I do a lot of things. I mentor, I'm ready to listen to someone. then I'm making somebody happy with the food. Then we do this we care, we share, where a group of us meet along with my customers. We feed the homeless people. So we wanted to fundraise, and one of my friends, she came up with this idea that why don't we ask kids to give their paintings. So she put it out on the Facebook, and for kids between 4 and 12 to donate their paintings. We never expected this. We got about 75 paintings.
Wow.
And we had an auction year, and we sold 50 paintings. We got about $1,900, and we could feed about 800 people in that.
Wow.
So that was really, really good. It was, yes.
So tell us a little bit about the overall philosophy that you have towards business. Is your goal to maximize profits? Is it to keep it as lean as possible, or are you more focused on these social aspects of your business?
Oh, I definitely need money to survive. But that works, because between the takeouts and the dine-ins and the tiffin services that I do, I have customers to keep it going. I've kept my wants very simple, and my needs are still simpler. So it's not much that I need. Again, I have that faith that whatever you need will be given to you. Okay, that doesn't mean you don't work. You work, but you don't need to accumulate, because you don't know what tomorrow brings.
That's wonderful. Yeah. And I think that links into my next question, because Ancila is one of the highest rated and highest reviewed restaurants, Indian restaurants, that I've ever come across. Everyone's swearing by it. How did you get these people to fall in love with Ancila's? Was it always like this? Was there a case when it was not like this and you decided, hey, no, I'm going to change things up significantly?
I went through a lot of lean period, but even during the lean period, I followed this model because it was never about money. It was just about me giving you good food, treating you well and giving you good food. Even the reviews, I don't check the reviews. Because honestly, the reviews are meant for others to read. If something goes wrong, you come and tell me, I can rectify it. So it just works like that.
Okay.
No, I've always followed this, because for me, it just matters that I've taken your money, I need to give you good food.
Yeah.
I just need to do that.
Yeah. And what's your approach to marketing?
Nothing. I don't market.
Wow. Okay.
I don't market at all. The computers are allergic to me, so I've got very poor social media skills.
Okay.
And I'm here 6 days a week, so I don't go anywhere much. So no, absolutely zero marketing. It's all word of mouth.
Wow.
This business has taught me a lot of patience, because there was a time when it was terrible. Like, I was literally to the ground. I didn't know where the next day money I would have. And after you go through all that, then you realize there is something there which is much higher than you, which will take care of you. You just do what you are doing. And when I see that upturn, from having such a lean, I've been locked out from this restaurant. I have been back by 6 months. I have had eviction notices. I have had, like the Electra guy calling up and saying, we're discontinuing your lights. They have been discontinued. I have had gas discontinued. So I've gone through so much. But I just kept at it.
Yeah.
And then, bad days, as your good days are not forever, your bad days are also not forever. So it will turn around. You just have to have patience and believe in what you do.
Yeah. And how did you build that resilience to not give up and to keep going? Because I think a lot of people will want to hear this, especially if they're in a business as tough as the restaurant business.
It is basically a faith in yourself and in faith in what you are doing. If you believe in what you are doing, you just keep at it. Things will fall in place. You're tried and you're tested. It's always a test to see. We say that we believe, but how much of us really believe? The moment you have a difficulty, you're willing to give up, but you don't see that is your stepping stone, because it brings out so much in you which you're not even aware of. You don't even know your strengths. It's only when you hit or when you stumble that you realize your strength. I never realized that I would have so much of patience. Never. Or I would have empathy or that. It's only all these stumbling blocks which taught me all that.
Yeah. Really being tested by fire. And
big time.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. And so tell us a little bit about like the actual environment and the vibe. Was this your vision? How did it come
No,
about?
this is my customers. This is not my vision at all. My customers will say, "Oh, this is boring. Let's paint." I say, "Okay, go ahead." They bring the paint. They paint the whole thing. The curtains are done by my customers. That namaste is painted by my customers.
Wow.
Everything, anywhere you see, they're all memories for me. They're all bought in by customers.
So Ancila, this has been your first business, right? You've been trained in law, haven't gone to business school, and I think that's a misconception that a lot of people have, that they need to be trained in a particular way for them to be successful in business. And you haven't done anything like this before. So how was that experience for you? And if you could go back in time to Ancila from 16 years ago, what do you wish that Ancila from that time knew that you know now? And how do you think that could have changed things for you?
In a way, I think it was a blessing that I didn't know. Because had I knew, I wouldn't have jumped into it, for sure.
Oh, really?
For sure. Yes. And
Yeah.
another thing I realized, to my favor, that I don't know, I haven't been to a cooking school, is I don't have boundaries. Because when I realized, when I had chefs coming in who wanted to work, they have a particular way of working, and that's it. It has to be done that way. But because I don't have any of those boundaries, I could just mix and match, do whatever I want, as long as I went to the taste. So I think that worked in my favor.
And what would you say to people who are currently either just starting out in the restaurant business, thinking of starting out in the restaurant business? What tips, what pieces of advice would you share with them?
The first thing is, if you're young and if you're just having young kids, don't get into it. If anything I regret in the whole journey is not being able to spend time with my kids. And my kids also lost on it. So that was a big sacrifice from both our parts.
And once these kind of checks have been, checked off, okay, I don't have young kids, I'm not trying to balance multiple other responsibilities outside of work. Once that's clear, okay, now I can start a restaurant. What would you say to that group of people?
It depends. Are you in there for money, or are you in there because you're passionate about food? And for me, it worked. My way of doing it worked is because I cook food after I talk to the customer. So most of my food is fresh food. That way it eliminates waste. I have zero waste. I didn't have that, and that was the biggest mistake that I could have done, because you need to have that. That gives you a lot of, takes away a lot of stress.
How much working capital would you say?
At least 6 months to 1 year.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
because then you do not take drastic steps then. You don't cut corners. And when you don't cut corners, you don't take drastic steps, then you're giving yourself enough time to survive.
And is that roughly how long it took for you to actually start drawing an income out of the business? 6
Oh
months to 1
no,
year?
I told you we did very well when we started.
Okay.
Then we had family issues, and so the whole thing went off. I brought the business to the ground. And then from 2017, I started climbing up again. Yeah, from 2012 to 2017 were 5 years, very rough time. Then from 2017, it started really, I knew what I was doing, sort of thing. Yeah.
Wonderful. And what's next for Ancila's?
I don't know. I really don't know. I like what I'm doing. I like how we are involved with the community. I will look out for more things to keep me busy doing all that. Yeah. But I'm not, it's not want to be a millionaire or anything like that. I'm quite happy with the pace at which I'm going. As long as I'm keeping my customers happy, I think that's what counts for me.
Wow.
More than anything else.
Okay. How far out do you plan? Because I think I like the idea of don't think too far out in the future, because you don't know if you're actually going to make it there. But you must have, everyone has a different time horizon. What's yours? How far
Just
out
one
do you
day, today. Today is only in my hand. I don't know about tomorrow.
Yeah.
So why?
Well, I have to be honest, so this is honestly a very truly one of a kind business, something that I've never come across. With all the community work that you're doing, feeding the homeless, working with shelters, donating charity, the art auctions, it's, I think, truly a model for a more evolved business than what all of us have been used to seeing in the world that we live in today. So I do hope more and more people will take inspiration from it. And I really want to thank you for your time today. And I wish you and Ancila as a new Cuisine the very best.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much for joining us here today. We've had a ton of fun talking to Ancila. And over the next few weeks, we're going to be featuring many more business owners who found success in their own unique ways. And if there's a particular business that you have in mind that you think should be featured here, be sure to drop their names in the comments below. And if you're in the market right now to buy or sell a business, be sure to check out Zonato.com for hundreds of active listings in Canada. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.